Hello Eagles fans and welcome to another episode of Inside Swoop presented by Jim Beam, where we're chatting all things West Coast. Like Groundhog Day, Scoey, except I really enjoyed that movie. This was just a stinking time all round. Claire McDowell, and Bill Murray, they were on fire. This was the opposite. Had a terrible time.
Well,
what's going on?
Lucky for you, I have never seen Groundhog Day. I know the concept. I haven't seen it. You know I'm not a big movie guy. I'm a footy guy.
Yeah, sure.
So I know footy.
Well, then talk to me. What is going on right now?
Well, I mean, the injuries. I really, I've been around footy long enough, both as a player and as a fan. I can't remember seeing anything like this. And
it was last year. That's 12 months ago.
No, but I would say that's a bit of a extenuating circumstances with COVID. I think that's something that we hadn't seen as a society with what happened there. Whereas this is just injuries from footy. So, look, I can't remember seeing much like it. I'm sure there has been. It's not like, woe is me too much. It's just what's happened. The injuries are a part of footy, and this is what's happening, but there's a lot of them.
Agree. Well, we're going to hear from Gavin Bell. He spoke earlier to the media about sort of the state of how this squad and injury list is in right now.
Yeah, we're in a challenging phase. We have got a long injury list, and probably 8 to 9 of those are collision-based injuries, and then unfortunately the ripple effect of getting collision injuries in game and at training is more work gets put on others. So there's been a bit of a ripple effect from each injury that we've sustained, and unfortunately the list is growing.
So does that make sense, Scully? As in the load gets pushed to other people, and therefore the minutes increase. And therefore, that might be the reason. I know he did touch on compact injuries, and there are a few of those, but the soft tissues that are bobbing up? Yeah,
I mean, it does make sense. I know there's a lot of people asking for answers as well. Why is this happening, and whose fault is it, and who's to blame, who's responsible, what's the club doing about it, what are players doing about it? From my experience at the footy club, both with the current fitness department, the players, and the footy club and the footy department and the medical department, I know they'll be doing everything they possibly can to not have this happen. I find some commentary in the media and I watch it all usually, and I can go both ways, both West Coast, Freo, whatever you like. But some of the commentary around having been someone's fault, I do think there's reasons for everything. And right now, if that's the reason, on the back of some knock injuries, broken legs, breaking wrists, these types of things, and players playing more minutes, I do understand that. There's clearly got to be an element of the training regime, the load, all of that. It all comes into play with injuries, and I was certainly injured during my career. I did hammies, I did calves, I had a crook back for a bit of it. It's got to be on the player as well, but there's also a lot of different elements. It's not just right. It's a hard service. That's why everyone's getting injured. Or right, we're doing the wrong drills, or the load's too high. There is a lot to take into account, and there's never just one answer. So it can be complicated and clearly a frustrating thing for the club at the moment.
We can't talk about each individual injury because we'll be here for too long. And I don't know if you saw this in John Gold Medical Report. It was like the Godfather series.
Yes.
I was tuned out for a while. It was pretty long. So I want to touch on a couple of them.
I haven't seen Godfather either.
Yeah, you're on fire right now with your pop culture. So here's a few of you. So Tom Cole, the ankle is sore, and it's the same ankle he had dramas with, missed all of last year. So devastating for a player that's certainly coming into his prime, age and games-wise.
Yeah, he is. So he missed all of last year and he's hurt the same ankle. So, look, it'll be... I think the hardest thing in rehab is getting yourself back to full fitness. And then once you're fully fit, you get through some games and you start to gain that confidence. And he was probably right at that point of confidence. So to injure that same ankle, really devastating blow for Coley personally, for the group. He's a really popular member of the group, both on and off the field, but he's becoming a real leader inside the group. So I think, not only what he does as a player on the field, with his actions, I think what he's starting to bring into his game is that leadership as a vocal leader. So that'll certainly be missed, but he'll be joining a big group in the rehab group.
When it rains, it pours. Harry Edwards, key defender, has spoiled a footy and fractured his wrist. How many times have you spoiled a footy in your career? How unbelievably stiff is that one?
I wonder if Harry had his wrist tape. Now, I'm not saying this is Harry's fault, but on your question, I've signed a few. I've spoiled a few. I've signed a few. I've spoiled a few.
You're the king spoiler, yeah.
But I used to tape my wrists early in my career, really early. I used to spray my wrists a lot because I was just spoiling. That's all I did, running around spoiling the ball. But I used to.
I know. I made your highlight reel. It was awesome.
All training, all games. It was Billy Sutherland, and then it was Jimmy, and then it was DJ, and then it was Corinne, and then it was Goons. I'd have someone tape my wrists for every session. So, you can
I
stop
thought that's
that.
because you wrote the game plan on it because you couldn't quite remember it all.
Well, I didn't need to know much of a game plan when all I needed to do was just spoil.
Sure.
So yeah, he's broken his wrist, and that's an injury that you can't avoid. Taping or not, you can't avoid that one.
You're a habitual ankle roller. This one needs your attention. So this is Elijah Hewitt. Go back to the waffle, get some touch. Was this the second ball up of the game? How is that one?
Oy.
When did that happen?
It actually happened before he got to his man. You can see the divot that he took out of the turf. So you were telling me what this looked like. That's the first time I've seen it. He actually does it before you think he's done it. So he does it when he goes to step, and then he comes back into the player, and then the next step he takes on it, he's like, oh, wow, hurt my ankle. Mate, I'm a habitual ankle roller, and they're never good, but they, if there's no structural damage in terms of, they're all major points that you need surgery on, they can be looked after, rehabbed, and you can come back quickly on them.
Literally, the next kick into the forward line, Harry Creasy goes down. He's your BNF winner from last year.
Right.
You get another concussion. So there's Harry going down. You get a blue card concussion later in the game. You've got one fit man on the bench. You're taking on last year's premiers. Probably a fair reason you go down by a record 169 points. Just a month ago, they're 3-0, flying with 14 listed AFL players in that team. So are you going to strap the boots on? This is a dead serious question.
I very much could. Very much could.
Is it about the dollar, mate?
Is it a dead serious question?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
I know. I've listened to Ask Simo, and he threw one out there, and we're probably desperate of a few tolls right now.
It depends if Simo took me seriously or not.
Do you take yourself seriously in your condition right now?
Hey, there's no need to bring my condition into this. But do I take myself seriously? Sometimes I don't. But look, I mean,
that's a fair reason why you're going down by 169 of the bench.
Yeah, it is. Like injuries game day affect it. I think the bigger impact is the injuries at the top level, because your top 10 waffle players go and play AFL. The guys that have come into the side the last couple of weeks, and they're doing really well. But that means they're going to top the bottom 10 up with guys out of the amateur leagues, basically. So, is the model right? I don't know. I don't have a viable solution. I do think we would be closer to an AFL reserve side than we were before COVID. I don't think that's a solution next week or for West Coast or anything, but I've got to think that an AFL reserves team, where every AFL side has a reserve side, is got to be closer than we were before COVID, because before COVID, I don't think logistically the AFL or clubs thought it could work, but given what they've been able to do over the last couple of years, I do think that there'd be at least a viable option to do it. You'd have to increase list sizes, you have to increase footy spend, you have to increase cap sizes, you have to get more money into the game, but all those things are happening. So, I don't think that's a realm of impossibility.
Let's touch very briefly on the Cats game. We kicked the first two, and a lot of fans are thinking, no way, could this actually happen?
Yes.
A half a footy later, no, it can't. Geelong flexed their muscle, as I think many thought they might, much like they did against the Hawks a week prior, and they banged through an epic second quarter and put the game to bed. But there was, a lot of fans might not want to hear it, but it was evident that the fight was there, and you and I have both been involved at different levels of games like that, where it's very easy to just go, nah, I'm done. I'm not putting in anything from here on out. They showed plenty of fight. I
like the small flex there by you being involved in games at different levels. That's very good. How many premierships? Go on.
A few.
How many?
A few.
Tell them.
5.
Well done.
Thanks.
That's 4 more than me.
Yep.
Look, I think you've got to look at both this game and the Melbourne game. At periods of those two games, the pressure that the club and the side was able to put on the opposition was high level. And Geelong's a good team, Melbourne's a good team. And when West Coast put pressure on, West Coast are a good team. The best teams can do it consistently for longer. And like we saw it for Essendon against Melbourne, right? So Essendon played very similar to what West Coast played, a very similar brand, but they just did it for 4 quarters. West Coast did it for 2, Essendon don't do it for 4, and they win the game. If West Coast can play the way they did in patches for 4 quarters, they'll win some games this year. Can they do it? I don't know. Right now, no, they can't, and they're not. But there were some really good signs.
They kicked 5-2 from midfield intercepts, which wasn't too bad at all against a team like Geelong.
They won the 3rd. Did they win the 4th? I can't remember if they won the 4th. But look, they were valiant in defeat. I don't think there's anything such as an honourable loss. I don't like that term. I know people are throwing that around. But they certainly showed a lot of fight, determination, grit. And look, they don't win, and they probably were never going to win that game. You don't go into thinking that, but let's be honest, it's probably not a game that was winnable. But the fight they showed is something they can take into next week. But you want to try and win, not lose.
Emerging leader and a bloke who's in some pretty good form, Oscar Allen, had 4 of the best. He spoke to Eagles media after the game.
There was some pleasing aspects to start the game. Thought we probably had the game on our terms for the first 10 minutes, and then it's probably a big lapse of 40 to 50 minutes. And against a quality side like Geelong, it really hurt us. And I thought it was pleasing, showing some resilience in the second half of the game. But if we're going to be competitive against the best sides, you can't have lapses like that for big pieces of the game. We need to be more compliant around the ball. So we had a couple cough-ups that really hurt us. And against good sides, they don't bobble the ball. They take it cleanly, clean hands, and they're out and away. Little fundamental errors hurt us. So we'll get back to training that this week and get better for next week.
Probably your top 2 players on the day is your tall timber up forward.
Yep.
You like their performance?
Yeah, 4 goals to Allen, 4 goals to Jakey Waterman. Look, Oscar Allen, I think I said here, I speak a lot at the moment on different shows. I think I said on this show that I rated him for a sneaky little look at the Coleman, and he's like sitting in the top 5 goal kickers in the competition right now.
Yeah.
So, look, I was saying that with extreme optimism at the start of this year, but look, he's had an incredible start to the year, Oscar Allen. In a side that's not going well, it's won 1 game, it hasn't been close to winning in other games, and he's kicking goals. So you can only imagine what he'd be doing in a good side. And Jake Waterman, I mean, he certainly hasn't reinvented himself, but the opportunity to play as that second ruckman behind Bailey Williams, I think, more than anything, just mentally gets you into the game. You're not having big patches where you're out of the game as a forward or as a third forward is what Jake's playing right now. When you get in that role and you don't get the opportunity to run up on the ball, if you're not in the play, you can spend large parts of quarters out of the game where at the moment we're seeing Jake involved the full time. And he's a great footballer. He's got a good footballing brain. He's smart. He's skillful. He can adjust on the fly. He makes good decisions. So, look, I've been couldn't be more impressed with the start he's had after missing the first game. And 4-goal haul does him well on the weekend.
Absolutely. The 20 touches also, as you said, around the ball, helping a great deal with his confidence. In his 7th year now at the club, he spoke to the media early in the week.
Well, I'm coming off pretty limited pre-season, so I didn't want to set the expectations too high for myself, especially coming off no pre-season. And obviously missed round 1. Probably needed to get a bit more match fitness, and I think I'm in a good spot physically, and I think that turns into mentally. So, you try not set too high of an expectation yourself, because if you fall short, then you can get yourself in a bit of trouble. But no, I'm well aware of how significant this year is in my career, and I think I've got off to a pretty decent start. But I've got to turn some of those games into wins for the footy club, that's for sure.
Another highlight, Scully, was Ruben Jimby putting through his first major in Eagles colours. Had an eventful day, did Ruben. So not only did he slot this ripper on the run, but he's also got a bit of WWF eye gouging going on. So he's copped a poke to the eye. Great news. I think he was the only punter from the injury update to be like, you're good to go. So
I was waiting for that to be like an eyeball out of the eye socket. I seriously was. The way he reacted, I know he's a tough kid.
Speaking of this one, so thoughts on this one? Dangerfield giving him a bit of treatment there. Are you all for that?
Oh, I'm not for it. You don't want to kick people in the face. Yeah, I'm for. But
you love your UFC. I don't know where you're.
But I'm also not for the carry on that was. It should be fine. It should be banned, and
Is it a free kick?
Well, it is a free kick. It should be a free kick. It's in the rules as a free kick.
Yep. Toby Green reckoned it'd probably be a free kick to someone else.
Well, yeah, people kept saying Toby Green was suspended. He was never suspended for that incident that people were talking about. He got fined. So there was a lot of carry on that week when he did it, and it was a worse motion than what Dangerfield does. So. Look, probably should have been a free kick. Difficult to see for the umpires. Hard job out there. But I was just glad the boy, Ruben Jimby, just got through. I know he got subbed out at the end of the game, but hopefully that was a management issue and we'll be able to see him this week again.
I know we said we wouldn't touch on more injury-related news, but seeing Elliot Yeo put himself in the midfield in this second half reminded you exactly what this bloke is capable of. Have a look at that one, just bouncing off of tackles, put it upon himself and looked like the Elliot Yeo of old. But unfortunately, we're going to see a clip coming up where he's absolutely mixed Dangerfield there, and he's gone off the ground at that point. So I believe that's the moment where he's strained his groin.
Yeah, I mean, not a positive thing, a soft tissue injury for Elliot Yeo. He's missed a lot of time with OP and a couple of little soft tissues in there as well. So, it just adds to the list, doesn't it? And
Jake Waterman said in the presser that, you almost felt like you didn't really know how to talk about it anymore with him around the change rooms. Around someone like Yowie or Shuey, what do you say after you've spoken to them about it so many times?
Yeah.
Could you relate to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, it's not one it's not one you want to be asking players when they're walking up and down the corridors. Because
how you doing? How you feeling?
Yeah, how's the calf? How's the hammy? How's the groin? Because you got 45 players, you got probably another 50 staff. If every single one of those people says, "How you going?" then by the end of it, they're not going too well. So, they're all going to have to get into rehab and get their injuries right. Like this isn't some issue that, like COVID, that we've never seen before. We don't know how to handle. These are hamstrings and calves and groins and soft tissue injuries and surgeries. This all happens at a footy club. So although it's rare to get this volume, there's people in place to deal with this sort of stuff.
All right, we're certainly hoping Yowie and a few of his teammates can get back for round 7's game against the Blues. So we've had so many Sunday bonanzas going on. Finally, a Saturday night fixture for all the fans to get back around Optus Stadium. There's tickets going. You have an open air box. I think there's a couple of them still remaining. Go to Ticketmaster or visit the club website. It's also food bank round, as we know, Scully.
Yep.
Great cause. Donate on the night or online. I think they're trying to raise 1 million meals. You made the joke that they should go to me for my malnourished frame. I thought that was a bit stiff.
I think they did that off air, actually, but thank you for bringing that.
You did nail me, and it was probably fair, but I think they'll go to someone a little bit more worthwhile.
Thank you.
Gather round. So, success. I'm sure you've talked gather round a desk on your 20 million podcasts that you've had.
No.
Looked like it went all right.
It looked great. Yep.
The Eagles, it was reported that Gavin Bell, head of football, is looking like lodging, and I'm sure Freo will probably do the same, for us to be getting an extra home game if we're going to be copping another Adelaide game in the fixture all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Despite being the shortest travel, I'm sure they wouldn't care about that one too much. How much does one extra home game matter in your eyes?
Oh, I mean, it would do a bit, especially if you could get it over the line and you could, say, play back-to-back games. You know, instead of going in, out, in, then over a month, you might only travel once in a month. Do you know what I mean? So instead of going, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, Perth, you're Perth, Melbourne, Perth. And it's just the cumulative load. It's a little bit like the injuries, the travel. By the end of the year, that 1 week that you didn't have to, pack your bags, get on the plane, sleep in another bed, it does make a difference. So I can see why the club would be pushing for that.
Back in Adelaide this week, 6-day break. Some marvellous scenes have happened at Adelaide Oval. You didn't play in either of these two moments. So we've got Shuey's 2017 goal in the elimination.
I was in the coach's box for this.
How was that? Were you getting your kit off at some point? Or
Well, Lewis Jetta actually played a ripping last quarter in that game, and I lay claim to putting him in the position that they were playing him in. It was Sherrod Wellingham and I. You can ask Adam Simpson, you can ask Justin Longmuir, who was there at the time, Daniel Pratt. We came up with that.
Okay. I've never heard that one before. That's a good one. And then we've got Gov, obviously, in 2018. Where were you for this one?
I was there as well, probably in the crowd. He shanked that. He kicked that off. No, actually, I was at home. I wasn't even in the squad for this one. Yeah, cheers. But he kicked that off. If he was wearing a shin guard, it would have come straight off the shin guard, closed his eyes.
Yeah.
Just like a few other kicks he's done across his time.
There's plenty of other Adelaide games which they've got over. They do love playing at that ground, or we love playing at that ground. Other topics of discussion, the Rioli rematch, a bit of sting taken out of that, seeing as though we've met in the pre-season, I guess. Big Scotty Lycett, I don't know who's going to be rucking against him. There's a bit of a close eye on Bailey Williams.
Right.
Of the hamstring awareness I think he's got.
So you're telling me that not only could I play waffle, I may even reignite my AFL career.
Surely that's the ruckman you want, because you'd get in Lycett's head big time, I would have thought.
I'd try to. That would be literally the only thing I could do. There wouldn't be a lot of jumping going on.
So what else are we watching in this game against Port? They're in good form. They've won a couple on the trot, and they had Brisbane covered in round 1. You're getting them at a tough time when they're flying?
Yeah, I mean, if we can speak about their side for a little bit, Rosie and Butters have been outstanding to start this year, and they're sort of this combination that rotates on ball, half forward flank. So the West Coast will have to come up with a way to curtail that strength. Travis Boak just continues to, I don't know, he's like Benjamin Button going backwards. A little bit like Shannon Hearn. They're similar guys. They just do things well, consistently, always very good players.
Well, they've had to ease him back because he got hurt in this practice game against West Coast out here at Mineral Resources. So sadly, he's coming into full match fitness just in time for us.
Yeah, so I mean, their midfield's their strength. They've got a great back line. Alir's a top 5 intercepting defender in the league. The way he plays his footy, I really love to watch. And he just looks like he enjoys his footy. He's always smiling, whether it's a mistake or he does well. He's got a big grin on his face. So he's great to watch. And They've thrown some things around in front of the footy with Charlie Dixon coming back into the side this year. He's an incredibly important part. So you'd think Barras gets the match up on him. Something to do with the midfield, curtailing some of the stuff in there with some of our younger guys. And then, what can our forwards in Waterman, in Darling, in Allen do against, a really strong key backline?
Yeah, well said. But ruck issues, so Jamo, if he gets through the training, he goes well and he plays.
Okay.
Luke Shuey gets through training, goes well, plays.
He'd be help.
They subbed Lyson out last week as well. So
Saw
would they have
that.
Finlayson ruck for the remainder of the game?
Dixon, yeah.
And Finlayson, they swap up?
Yeah, Dixon's been playing a lot of ruck over the last couple of weeks, and he looks really impressive when he goes in. So he's clearly coming back to his peak fitness. So I mean that's going to be a real area that West Coast. You can play without a ruckman in this league. You can do it, and it's becoming less and less important to have a dominant ruckman. But you need to be prepared to play like that. So I think against clearly a very good ruck brigade in Lycett, Dixon, and as they go through there, they're going to have to set up accordingly.
They got a tough injury list. You see that? They had 3 on it, and 2 were tests. So they're doing it tough there.
There's someone. I think Adelaide have 0.
Is that right?
I think Adelaide have 0 players unavailable.
Unbelievable. We've also got Tommy Barris, who's a stand-in skipper at the moment until Boots comes back. We sort of asked him about what the mindset was like of the playing group, especially the youngsters coming in, having to front up. That's what he had to say earlier in the week.
We are going after our game style, and it's a clear and simple message, and it was the same as we were talking about for the last 18 months, and we believe it's going to bring us success, and we believe that if we can keep continuing to build on the game style and how long we can play it for, then we're going to get to that success. We expect some of the younger kids to come in and play their role into the team game style and into the system, and if we can do that collectively for long enough, I believe we've got the talent to beat anyone.
It's a bit of that next man up mentality, Scully. I mean, you were preaching that back in 2018 with your system set up, weren't you?
Yeah, Tom Barras sounds like a leader to me. He's
Sounds like he's had about 5 million Winfield Blues as well.
No, he doesn't. He's a leader, mate. He the way he speaks, he's backing in the system. He wants to back in the kids. You gotta show faith, confidence, connect with others. Like that's what you got to do when you're in these sorts of situations. I won a wooden spoon in 2010. I know what it's like to play in these sorts of sides where it's not winning a lot of games of footy. And I look back at that time in my career as like fondly. Like I learnt a lot. Learnt how bad it is to lose. I learnt how to. I think I was tagging at stages there. I was playing on guys through the middle of the ground. Learn how to work hard. Learn how to show some resilience. So there will be positives that comes out of this, but you have to stay the course, like Tom said.
You weren't a delight to do podcasts with that year, I can tell you that much. So also, Scully.
I mean, what would you have been doing, honestly, without me?
Struggling,
yes.
Definitely. It is Mother's Day up around the corner. And good news, the Eagles Superstore has you covered. Drop by or visit the store online, wcesuperstore.com.au. Pick up some fab gifts for mum. They got hoodies, PJs, puffer jackets.
Good.
The choices are never ending.
Wow.
You going to get your mum something?
I might. Jan would be very happy about that. What about you?
Get mum something?
Yeah.
Nah, she can get in line with everyone else.
Okay, perfect. I'll sort Jan out. She's a very big West Coast fan.
Yeah, we know that.
Yes.
So
Hello, Mum.
thank you for joining us yet again, Scully, for the Inside Swoop, courtesy of Jim Beam. You've had a big week. Saw Wirra was on Backchat last.
Oh, mate.
That would have been an all-timer, right?
He was awesome. So Backchat, our podcast, our little podcast that we used to do together, and I've taken it to new heights since I flicked you.
Sure.
Look, we've been wanting to chat to Wirra forever, and he...
Can't believe he turned up. One of the most unreliable scheduling Eagles of all time.
He's very keen to do more media, so perhaps you can get him here at the club. He was just a great chat. It had the good mix of humour. Of course, David Rapunda, one of the funniest teammates I've ever played with, but some real serious stuff, some big issues we covered, and yeah, just overall, the feedback we've got on that, on Backchat, people have told us the best ever. So I'm taking it as a compliment. I do think we come from a high level, and it's taken
We
it
had Daniel
higher.
Ricciardo on one of those shows, mind you.
Yeah,
but,
correct.
Yeah.
So look, tune into Wirra, find Backchat on wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Excellent. Great, man.
I assume the club's putting it on the website and stuff for us.
You can keep dreaming on that one, Scully. Thanks for your time. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.